We usually don't spend a lot of time on this show talking about all the changes in the rules and what needs to happen next. We mention it every once in a while. And I think everybody kind of knows where college sports is going. But I thought it was interesting that Jim Harbaugh took a lot of his press conference to celebrate Michigan's national championship, explaining what he thinks needs to change in the sport. And he's been pretty outspoken. But I think it's particularly interesting because of what he's dealt with in the past year. His animosity towards the NCAA, toward the Big Ten, I think probably informs how he feels about some of this stuff. But I find it intriguing that a lot of times we'll ask Jim Harbaugh questions in press conferences, and the answers will be fairly scattershot, almost like he's filibustering, like he just wants to get this out of the way, doesn't really want to give us an answer. There was an answer to a question on Tuesday that was clearly planned out, that had talking points, which some of which you've heard before, but then he expanded on them. It was organized. It was not what you're used to hearing from Jim Harbaugh, not the style of speech you're used to hearing from Jim Harbaugh, because clearly this means something to him. I'm not entirely sure it's all out of the goodness of his heart. I think a lot of it is he would like to see the NCAA, maybe the Big Ten, lose on some stuff that they would like to win. But very intriguing answer from Jim Harbaugh to a question about what he would change in college sport.
Football may be in chaos with all the stuff with NIL, transfer portals, the playoff format that's changing. Do you think it's a sustainable model? And if you could change one thing about college football, what would it be?
The thing I would change about college football is to let the talent share in the ever-increasing revenues. We're all robbing the same train, and the ones that are, in the position to, do the heavy lifting, the ones that, risk life and limb out there on a football field are the players, and not just football players, student athletes. The organizations are fighting hard to keep all the money. The universities, the NCAA, the conferences, and it's long past time to let the student athletes share in the ever-increasing revenues. It's billions. I keep reading facts and about how much money's being made. Product placement. Yeah, I can't have a can of a different kind of soda up here. I got to put it into a cup here.
Jim Harbaugh's a Diet Coke guy. CFP's a Dr. Pepper event. So, yeah, can't have his can of Diet Coke up on the podium during the national championship press conference. But what he points out, stuff he's been saying, the robbing the same train quote, you heard that on Saturday. Harbaugh's been talking about this stuff for a while, but clearly antagonistic. He does not like the NCAA. They've been investigating him over this cheeseburger gate thing for over a year now. And I think that relationship is not real good. So my guess is part of this is out of a desire to see the NCAA, which has been fighting legally for a long time, to see them lose. He would like to see these people lose. But he's not wrong about everybody trying to fight to protect their money. If you'd like to get into college hoops right now, open your PrizePicks app. Well, you don't have the PrizePicks app? Well, download it right now, because it is America's best, easiest, most fun, #1 daily fantasy platform. And if you would like to play right now, you absolutely can. So the Texas A&M Auburn basketball game is about to tip off. Here's how PrizePicks works. You pick squares. So you take a player and you say, I think this player will score more than this set number of points, or less than, or have more than this set number of rebounds, or less than. So, for example, if I'm watching Auburn, Texas A&M, we got Johnny Broome for Auburn. We got Tyrese Radford for Texas A&M. Johnny Broome's point total, 15.5. You think he's going to have more than that or less than that tonight? Tyrese Radford, boots. Is he going to have more than 11.5 or less than 11.5? That's how you do it. You want to go do some NFL playoffs? You want to have some fun with the NFL playoffs this weekend? Absolutely. Is Joe Flacco elite? It doesn't matter. Can he throw for more than 270.5 yards? That's what matters on PrizePicks. Matthew Stafford going to Detroit. Happy homecoming. Jared Goff revenge game. Matthew Stafford, more than or less than 264.5 yards. This is how you play. So the more squares you pick, the more you can multiply your money. You can start with 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all about how much you want to multiply. So download that PrizePicks app. Use the code Andy. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Code is Andy. They match your first deposit up to $100. You get started. What better time than now? There's a game tipping off in a few minutes. You can be playing PrizePicks right now. And the thing is, there's more money coming into the system. There was an ESPN report on Monday night that the new playoff, the 12-team playoff, the new contract that starts in 2026 could fetch $1.3 billion a year. That's almost $1 billion more than the old one did. So there is continually more money coming into the system. You know about the new Big Ten TV deals. You know about the new SEC TV deals. So he's right. There's more money to spread around. If they start spreading this to some of the players, they probably don't get sued as often. But you could also just let the man have his Diet Coke.
I mean, everybody is, they're maximizing every single revenue source there is, and but they're not sharing it with the talent. I mean, and there's no business that would ever fly. I mean, the Supreme Court has said the same thing. So, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, I would change that one, and there needs to be a voice for the young people, the student athletes. Right now, there is no voice. I mean, there are armies of attorneys, and I've seen them, at the NCAA, I've seen them at the universities, the conferences, and then, if they don't have enough firepower legally, I mean, they go out and hire, the tall building law firms, and they get more firepower. It's just, but there's no voice for the student athletes right now, and it just needs to change. That's a wrong needs to be righted.
Yeah, we read the legal back and forth when the Big Ten suspended Jim Harbaugh over the sign stealing accusations, and the Big Ten had a lot of legal firepower. Michigan hired legal firepower to help Jim Harbaugh. But he's absolutely right. The NCAA, the conferences, they keep hiring ever more expensive lawyers to protect their money when they could just get to what they're going to inevitably get to anyway. He mentioned the Supreme Court there. There was a 9-0 verdict in the Supreme Court a few years ago in the Alston case that, look, we know where this is going to go. You know how this story ends. And, with Jim Harbaugh, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, he's out of here. He's going to the NFL anyway. This is him just sort of burning the bridges on the way out. I don't know about that. I also don't know if he's necessarily going to the NFL. I do think he is calculated in the way he looks at this. And there's a kind of right side of history thing going on here where that is where it's going to go. So him being the first major coach to advocate the way he is for this, to have this platform and use it that way, I do think there's a little bit of calculated effort there. But I think he also really believes this. And probably good for recruiting, if we look at it that way. Probably, I would imagine recruits hear these comments and say, you know what, I'd rather play for him than a coach who says, well, I quit before the schools can pay the players. A few coaches who've said that, by the way. So what is Jim Harbaugh's solution?
And I'm starting to compile a list of just the excuses that people give for not. It's complicated. Well, what about this? What about that? All I know is there's plenty there. There's some. I've simple math. I mean, anybody that's profiting off of the student athletes, me included, Anybody who's drawing a salary, making a livelihood, a lot of people sitting here robbing the same train as well, that it could take 5 to 10% less of what they're getting. Every organization, universities, a lot of them that are, collecting that money tax-free. At least if you gave it to these guys, it'd go back into the economy, through taxes. The NCAA, the conference commissioner, the Big Ten office, all the conferences, 5 to 10% into a pool. That's one way. And things happened fast this year. You saw it. I mean, people say it's complicated or it takes time. We saw a lot of change, in 1 year, just this year. A whole conference went into the portal overnight.
Look at Jim Harbaugh trying to grow the economy, trying to grow the GDP by spreading out. When he said these guys, he's talking Blake Corum and Will Johnson were on either side of him as he was saying this. The 5 to 10% thing is interesting. I think it would actually cost more than that ultimately if you fully game out what Jim Harbaugh is talking about, where players have a union, there's a collective bargaining agreement. It'll be more than 5 to 10% that they'd be sharing with the players, although they are paying scholarships, that sort of thing. So that percentage is a little higher as it is already. But the 5 to 10% thing is interesting because let's say Jim Harbaugh stayed at Michigan. The new contract that's on the table for him, if he were to take 5 to 10% off of that, he would still be making more than he's making now. So he's going to do fine one way or the other. Don't you worry about Jim Harbaugh. But he's also not wrong about all the excuses they make and about how complicated it is and how you can't do this and you can't do that. But when it's their money, when they're worried about not being as economically sound as what they consider to be a peer institution, well, they're happy to make knee-jerk decisions. He's right about the Pac-12. That happened it crumbled overnight. Now, the things that led to when Oregon and Washington decided to go to the Big Ten, when Colorado, Arizona State, Utah decided to go to the Big 12, those happened over a period of years, but all of the stuff, the big decisions happened over a period of weeks. So it's not as complicated as they think. If you really want to make a new system, just go make a new system. If you're tired of getting sued, well, just listen to Jim Harbaugh.
So, these things could happen. Hopefully there be some real, I don't know, for a long time people say, that unionizing would be bad. I mean, maybe it's that if people aren't going to do it, if they're not going to do it out of their own goodwill and do what's right, I mean, that's probably the next step. You think, I mean, got nothing against unions, so that's the next step, fellas. I mean, I think that's the way you got to go. That's what I'd like to see change, in college athletics.
So funny story from our friend Sam Schwartzstein, and we need to have Sam on the show. He's a brilliant football mind. He played center for Harbaugh at Stanford. If you watch the Amazon NFL games on Thursday nights, Sam is on the alternate broadcast where they show you all the advanced stats. Again, he's brilliant, but he tells these hilarious Harbaugh stories. One of them is about how Harbaugh tried to convince the Stanford players they were the ones who needed to unionize first, and that they're smart guys and they could help college athletes all across the country. And then he got to the real reason why he wanted them to unionize. And that's because he wanted the players to say, well, we would like to negotiate so that we could have more than 20 hours of football per week, because the NCAA only allows you to practice them 20 hours a week, meet 20, the practices, meetings, they have a kind of defined amount of stuff you can do within those 20 hours a week. And so Harbaugh wanted them to unionize so they could negotiate more hours into the CBA so that they had more hours to game plan. So again, not entirely altruistic, but also kind of understanding probably of where these things are going. And you're not going to get an antitrust exemption from Congress if you are the schools, if you are the conferences. So if you're tired of getting sued, there is a way to fix that, and that is to negotiate with the players. The reason the NFL players aren't constantly suing the NFL, they have a collective bargaining agreement. Everything is governed by that. They go to arbitration if they have disputes. That's what you could have in college sports. It's not cut and dried. It's not easy. But again, when it's the school's money on the line, they seem to make decisions pretty quickly. And there are some court cases coming down the pipe where their money's going to be on the line and they're going to need to make some decisions pretty quickly. So this is something that we could see what Jim Harbaugh is saying come to fruition. Now, the question is going to be, is Jim Harbaugh going to be in college sports to find out how all this works? Or will he be in the NFL where they already have a CBA and a players association and everybody already knows how all of it works? It's a good question. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.